A Filipina nurse's secret affair with her Dubai patient spirals into murder when his wife finds their hidden videos. A love story turned into a deadly scandal that rocked the city's elite.
The Crime Scene presents a new page of crime, a new mystery, a new shock case.
Mia Santos had spent years chasing stability, but Dubai felt like a whole new universe. Neon lights, fast cars, and silence money could buy. At 29, she had finally landed a job at one of the city's most exclusive private hospitals, the kind where patients were billionaires with bodyguards and confidentiality agreements. Her first night shift in the VIP wing felt endless, until she walked into room 907. Fisel al-Rahman, a 42-year-old businessman, was recovering from a brutal car crash that left him with fractured ribs and a bruised ego. Even lying in that hospital bed, he radiated authority. A man used to getting what he wanted. His eyes lingered too long when she adjusted his IV, and his voice carried that slow, deliberate tone of someone testing boundaries. Mia brushed it off at first. She'd dealt with entitled men before, but something about Fisel was different. Magnetic, dangerous, wrapped in control. Over the next few nights, she found herself assigned to him again and again. Whether by chance or by design, she couldn't tell. He started asking personal questions, slipping compliments between his requests, making her laugh when she least expected it. By the time his discharge papers were ready, Mia was already in too deep. He offered her his private number, in case of emergencies, and her heart skipped even though her instincts screamed no. Dubai was a city of secrets, and she'd just stumbled into one. That night, she left the hospital with a strange mix of excitement and fear buzzing in her chest. She told herself it was harmless, just a connection, nothing serious. But deep down, something darker stirred, whispering that whatever had begun in room 907 would not end cleanly, and that she had just stepped into a world where love could kill. Their affair started quietly, like a slow-burning fuse that no one noticed until it was too late. Mia Santos told herself it was just chemistry, that Fisel al-Rahman's charm was a harmless distraction from her lonely nights in Dubai. He began visiting her outside the hospital, showing up in tinted cars and tailored suits, always with that disarming smile that made her forget who he really was. A married man with a reputation for keeping secrets. He took her to places she'd only seen on Instagram. Rooftop restaurants, beach villas, hidden lounges that didn't welcome ordinary people. He told her she deserved the world, and for a while, she believed it. Gifts appeared like magic. Designer handbags, diamond earrings, and envelopes stuffed with cash she refused at first but later accepted when bills piled up back home. Fisel made her feel wanted, seen, powerful even, in a city where most workers like her were invisible. But beneath the luxury, there was a shadow, the unspoken truth that their relationship lived on borrowed time. Mia started recording their moments together, saying she wanted memories, videos of him laughing, kissing her forehead, whispering promises. Fisel didn't object. He thought it was sweet. But those recordings weren't just love souvenirs. They were evidence of something forbidden. Every time she pressed record, she unknowingly stacked ammunition that would later destroy them both. She began missing shifts, sneaking out during breaks and deleting messages faster than she could read them. Her friends noticed she was glowing but also anxious, like she was walking on glass. She thought she was building a fairy tale, but what she was really creating was a ticking time bomb. And when it finally went off, no one in Dubai would be ready for the explosion. Layla al-Rahman had been married to Fisel for 15 years, and in those years she had learned one thing. Power was maintained through silence. She was the kind of woman who never raised her voice yet controlled every room she walked into. When she found the first clue of her husband's betrayal, it wasn't through gossip or instinct. It was through technology. One careless moment, one synced phone, one hidden album. It started with a single thumbnail, a blurred image of her husband's watch, a hand that wasn't hers resting on his chest. Her pulse didn't quicken. She simply opened it. Then came the videos, Fisel and a young nurse laughing, touching, whispering words that once belonged to her. Every second felt like a knife turning deeper, but her face stayed calm as she watched. There were no tears, no screams, no confrontation. Layla didn't believe in emotional scenes. She believed in strategy. By sunrise, she had backed up every file to a private drive, deleted the evidence from his phone, and called her lawyer, not to divorce him, but to prepare for war. She began following his movements, monitoring his accounts, tracing every purchase he made. Behind her cold exterior, something dark began to grow. Not heartbreak, but humiliation, the kind that demanded repayment. She smiled at Fisel during breakfast, kissed his cheek before he left, and played the role of the perfect wife while planning his downfall in silence. When he noticed her sudden calmness, he thought she had moved on. But what he didn't realize was that Layla had already decided his punishment. She wasn't going to destroy his money or reputation. She was going to take the one thing he thought he owned: control. And she would start with the woman who thought she could replace her. Fisel al-Rahman's life started unraveling the moment his wife's silence replaced her usual sharp remarks. He'd faced competitors, lawsuits, and even extortion, but nothing terrified him more than Layla's quiet. He sensed it, she knew. He could feel it in the way she looked at him, calm yet calculating, as if she was already building his grave. In panic, he turned to Mia Santos, showing up at the hospital one night under the pretense of a follow-up check. His composure cracked. Sweat stained his collar as he warned her that Layla might have found their videos. Mia tried to brush it off with nervous laughter, telling herself Layla was too classy for drama. But the first signs of danger crept in quickly. The feeling of being watched. The strange car idling near her apartment. The bouquet of roses left at her door with no note. She went to the police, explaining she thought someone was stalking her, but they only shrugged, asking if she had a jealous boyfriend. She walked home that night gripping her phone like a lifeline, trying not to look over her shoulder. Fisel, meanwhile, spiraled. He tried to delete everything, bribe hospital staff, even offered Mia a flight ticket to the Philippines for safety. But it was too late. Layla was always one step ahead, quietly observing while he scrambled like prey. Mia's anxiety grew with each day. Phone calls with no one speaking, messages that vanished before she could read them, shadows outside her window. She told herself it was stress, paranoia maybe, but deep inside she knew this was Layla's message. She had entered a game she couldn't win. And while Fisel promised to handle it, both of them were already caught in Layla's trap, a web woven with patience, fury, and a taste for poetic justice. 2 days after that late-night warning, Mia Santos vanished without a trace. Her co-workers at the hospital said she'd left mid-shift after getting a phone call that made her face go pale. The last thing they saw was her walking out in her scrubs, clutching her phone tightly as if she'd just heard something that couldn't wait. Hours passed, then a day, and her roommate, Carla, started to panic. Mia's things were untouched, her uniform neatly folded, her handbag on the dresser, her passport still in the drawer. Her phone went dead by midnight and every attempt to call went straight to voicemail. The security cameras at the hospital showed her stepping into a black SUV outside the staff exit, her head turning as if she recognized the driver. The footage cut off 5 minutes later, the vehicle's license plate unreadable, the trail going cold in seconds. Rumors spread like wildfire through the Filipino community. Some said Mia had run away with her rich lover. Others whispered she'd been deported after a scandal. But those who knew her best felt something darker. Carla went to the police, begging them to take it seriously, but the officers brushed it off, saying adults go missing all the time. Still, the story didn't sit right. Even the hospital administration kept quiet, removing her name from schedules as if she never existed. Fisel al-Rahman, meanwhile, was unraveling. He told friends Mia had moved back home, but couldn't explain why he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Layla al-Rahman didn't say a word. She hosted charity lunches, smiled for cameras, and wore the same diamond ring Mia once admired in secret. Somewhere in Dubai's neon sprawl, a secret was buried deep, and the desert had already begun swallowing the truth. Detective Omar Khalid was used to seeing cases quietly buried under influence and money, but something about Mia Santos's disappearance hit different. Maybe it was her family's desperate messages flooding social media, Or maybe it was the eerie precision with which her existence seemed to vanish overnight. Her work files were erased, her phone wiped clean, and even her hospital ID deactivated within hours of her last shift. That wasn't random, that was orchestrated. When Omar finally got the case, he started digging into her contacts and found one name that kept popping up: Fisel al-Rahman, a powerful businessman, wealthy enough to silence trouble before it started. Omar requested an interview, and Fisel arrived in an expensive suit, wearing sunglasses indoors, speaking with the kind of arrogance that comes from being untouchable. He told the detective that Mia was a kind nurse who'd become obsessed with him after his recovery, claiming she tried to blackmail him with fake videos. But the story didn't sit right. Financial records showed that Fisel had sent her multiple large transfers labeled as consulting fees, and hotel surveillance caught them entering together just days before she disappeared. Omar began to see the cracks. A man terrified of exposure, a woman who recorded too much, and a wife who suddenly donated millions to a charitable foundation the same week Mia went missing. Every lead pointed toward a cover-up layered in wealth and deceit. The detective faced pressure from above to let it go, but he refused. He'd seen enough rich men walk free while the powerless became headlines that faded. This time, he promised himself, it wouldn't end that way. Beneath the glamour of Dubai's skyline, he was certain a body was waiting to be found, and the sand always told the truth, eventually. When Carla Reyes walked into the police station holding a small flash drive, Detective Omar Khalid knew the case had just cracked open. Carla looked exhausted, her eyes red from nights of fear and guilt. She said Mia had given her the drive a week before she vanished, telling her to keep it safe, just in case something bad happens. Omar took it to the lab, and what they found on it changed everything. The videos were raw, real, and damning. Clips of Mia and Fisel together in hotel rooms, voice memos of him promising her a life outside the shadows, and worse, private confessions where he talked about deals with corrupt officials, offshore accounts, and fixing problems quietly. The audio was crystal clear, Fisel's voice sharp and unfiltered. One file stopped everyone cold. A video recorded just 3 days before Mia disappeared, where she sat crying saying she was scared of Fisel's wife, claiming she'd seen a car following her. The timestamps aligned perfectly with the night Fisel claimed he hadn't spoken to her. Omar leaned back in his chair, realizing this wasn't just an affair gone wrong, it was a power struggle wrapped in lies. The videos showed a man with too much to lose and a woman who finally realized it. He began piecing together timelines, tracing Fisel's calls and messages, but what stood out most was Layla's sudden appearance in the shadows. Phone records placed her car near Mia's apartment the night she vanished. The evidence was lining up like dominoes, and Omar knew one push could bring everything crashing down. The flash drive wasn't just proof of love, it was a confession of murder waiting to be solved. And for the first time, the mask covering Dubai's glittering elite began to crack. The call came just after dawn. A construction worker had stumbled upon something buried near the Al Qudra Desert, a shallow pit covered with sand and burnt debris. Detective Omar Khalid drove out immediately, his gut already knowing what he'd find. The air was heavy with heat and silence when the forensic team uncovered the body. What was left of it told a story more horrific than words could. The corpse was burned beyond recognition, but fragments of clothing and a small, half-melted smartwatch gave the first clues. The watch, once synced to Mia Santos's phone, held one last GPS ping, Fisel al-Rahman's private villa. Forensic officer Aisha Malik confirmed the burn pattern matched a chemical accelerant often used in construction, not something you'd find in a nurse's apartment. Mixed with the ash was something haunting. Traces of perfume and gold earring fragments, luxury meeting violence in the cruelest way. The autopsy revealed blunt force trauma to the skull before the fire, proving Mia hadn't burned alive. Someone had made sure she was dead first. Omar stood by as they zipped the remains into a black bag, the desert wind howling like it wanted to swallow the truth again. Back at headquarters, he spread the photos across his desk. The scorch marks, the tire tracks, the melted jewelry, and circled every lead pointing to the Al-Rahman family. He could already feel the weight of interference coming. Powerful names didn't like dirt being dug near their homes. But this wasn't a rumor anymore. It was murder. Someone had turned a nurse's love story into an execution. The city's skyline glittered in the distance, indifferent to the crime buried beneath its sands. But Omar swore that no amount of money or silence would keep this secret buried forever. When Detective Omar Khalid finally brought Layla Al-Rahman in for questioning, she walked into the station like she owned it. Dressed in a designer abaya with gold trim, she didn't look like a suspect. She looked like royalty on a visit. Her face was calm, her tone soft, but every answer felt rehearsed, too clean to be truth. She claimed she had been at a charity gala the night Mia disappeared, surrounded by witnesses, but when Omar asked for proof, her alibi cracked. The gala's guest list placed her there hours later than she claimed, and security footage showed her black Mercedes leaving her villa long before the event began. When Omar mentioned her husband's name, her eyes flickered, just for a second. A micro-expression of hate so sharp it gave her away. She told him she forgave Fisel's mistake, pretending to play the role of the wronged wife turned saint, but her perfectly manicured hands trembled when he slid photos of the burned body across the table. She asked for water, not out of nerves, but calculation, buying time to reset her composure. Omar noted every twitch, every hesitation. The perfume residue found on Mia's body matched a rare scent Layla ordered from Paris. One she claimed was a gift from her husband. The web was tightening, but Layla didn't flinch. She ended the interview by reminding Omar who her family was, who her lawyers were, and how easily cases like this could disappear. He'd seen arrogance before, but hers was different, cold, methodical, and dangerous. When she left, the air in the room still carried her perfume, the same one burned into the desert sand with Mia's remains. Omar knew then that Layla wasn't grieving a betrayal. She was celebrating a victory she thought no one could trace back to her. Fisel Al-Rahman sat in his penthouse overlooking the Dubai skyline, pretending his world wasn't collapsing beneath the glitter. The tabloids were starting to sniff around, whispers of a missing nurse tied to a wealthy patient spreading through private circles like wildfire. His lawyers worked overtime to bury stories, but the guilt he wore couldn't be masked by his tailored suits or luxury watches. The videos Mia recorded haunted him. Her voice, her laugh, her threats to expose everything echoed in his mind like ghosts that refused to rest. He had told himself it was love at first, that she made him feel alive again, but now her name was poison. The police were circling, his wife was growing colder, and his empire was cracking under the weight of secrets he thought he could control. The night before the investigation went public, he destroyed his phone, deleted files, and ordered his driver to take him to the marina. He stood by his yacht, staring into the black water, wondering how quickly power could turn to punishment. His assistant called, panicked, saying detectives had a warrant for his office. He ended the call without a word, his heartbeat pounding louder than the waves. For years, he'd bought silence, from business rivals, reporters, even women who got too close. But Mia had been different. She hadn't wanted money. She'd wanted him to choose her, to make her more than a secret. And when she realized he never would, she turned his love story into leverage. Now, the nurse he once thought he owned had become the woman who destroyed him. As he stared at his reflection rippling in the dark water, Fisel finally understood. The only thing more dangerous than a woman scorned was one with proof. Detective Omar Khalid's office looked like chaos. Photos pinned across the wall, red strings connecting evidence from Dubai's elite neighborhoods to the burnt patch of desert where Mia's body was found. For days, he barely slept, running through every piece of evidence that tied Fisel and Layla Al-Rahman to the crime. The video files, the perfume match, the gala timestamps, the villa's security footage that mysteriously malfunctioned for 3 hours on the night of the murder, all of it pointed in one direction. Yet, every time he tried to move forward, someone higher up slowed him down. Court orders vanished, warrants were lost, and witnesses started backing out, suddenly unavailable or leaving the country overnight. Corruption was dripping from every layer of the system, and Omar knew this was bigger than a crime of passion. It was a cover-up dressed in diamonds. His frustration turned to obsession. He went back to Mia's apartment, combing through what the original investigators missed. Hidden inside the vent, taped beneath a loose metal sheet, he found a small SD card. It was scorched around the edges but readable. On it were short clips, Mia recording herself crying, saying she feared for her life, saying Fisel told her his wife knew everything. One last clip showed a black SUV parked outside her building at midnight. The plate number was half visible, but enough. Omar traced it to one of Layla's personal drivers. That was the break he needed. He knew the truth was now undeniable, but it came with danger. The same people who killed Mia wouldn't hesitate to silence anyone standing in their way. As he watched the desert sunrise through his window, Omar realized this case wasn't just about justice for a murdered nurse. It was about dragging the powerful into the light, no matter who burned next. The morning news exploded like wildfire across Dubai. Business tycoon under investigation for nurse's murder. It was everywhere. Social media, talk shows, even whispered in cafes where people pretended not to care. Detective Omar Khalid's evidence had finally made it past the walls of influence that tried to bury it. Anonymous leaks sent the SD card footage straight to the press, and once the story hit the internet, there was no taking it back. Fisel al-Rahman's name was dragged through the mud, his photos plastered next to the burnt remains of the woman he once called his angel. His empire started to crumble overnight. Investors pulled out, his bank accounts were frozen, and his lawyers turned on each other trying to control the narrative. Layla al-Rahman, meanwhile, maintained her icy calm, appearing in public with dark sunglasses and her signature composure, acting like the storm didn't touch her. But behind her mansion gates, panic was setting in. Surveillance footage from her villa's driveway surfaced, showing her driver's SUV returning late that same night Mia vanished, its front bumper charred. Omar's team raided the driver's home and found cash, fake IDs, and burned gloves buried in his backyard. The driver vanished before they could arrest him, disappearing like smoke. Layla denied everything, claiming it was coincidence, but the cracks were showing. The police commissioner, once under pressure to drop the case, now demanded results to save face with the public. For the first time, power was slipping through the al-Rahman family's manicured hands. Fisel hid in his penthouse, refusing to speak to anyone, while Layla's name began trending with one word attached to it: killer. The city that once worshipped them was now watching their downfall like a movie, and the ending was about to get darker. Fisel al-Rahman's world imploded the moment Interpol issued a red notice, making him an international fugitive. He tried to flee through Oman by private jet, but the flight never cleared customs. Someone inside the system tipped off the police. When officers stormed the hangar, they found Fisel half-drunk, sitting on his suitcase, staring at nothing. The man who once controlled millions now looked like a ghost in an expensive suit. At the same time, Layla al-Rahman's palace was surrounded by media vans and flashing cameras as she was escorted out in handcuffs, her calm composure finally cracking. The footage went viral in minutes. The Ice Queen of Dubai arrested for murder. Detective Omar Khalid watched it all unfold from his car, exhaustion etched across his face. He had chased this case for months, battling threats, bribes, and bureaucracy, but the sight of justice finally catching up to them was bittersweet. During questioning, Fisel broke first. He confessed to helping cover up Mia's murder, admitting that Layla had confronted Mia the night she died, and in the chaos, things got out of hand. He claimed he tried to stop it, but Layla ordered her driver to make it disappear. The statement was damning, but the most chilling part was Fisel's tone. Detached, almost resigned, like a man who'd already accepted his own destruction. Layla denied it all, calling her husband a coward trying to save himself. Yet the evidence was stacking up. Chemical traces from Fisel's property matched the accelerant used in the desert, and Layla's fingerprints were found on the canister. As the courtroom date loomed, Dubai buzzed with disbelief, their golden couple exposed as monsters. The nurse they thought was nobody had finally taken down two of the most powerful names in the city, even from beyond the grave. The trial of Fisel and Layla al-Rahman became a global sensation, streamed and dissected like a twisted reality show of power, greed, and betrayal. The courtroom was packed with journalists, influencers, and socialites who once bowed to the couple's wealth but now watched them fall from grace. Layla sat stone-faced behind her designer sunglasses, refusing to look at her husband, while Fisel appeared broken, his once commanding presence reduced to nervous fidgeting and downcast eyes. The prosecution painted a brutal picture: a jealous wife discovering explicit videos of her husband with Mia Santos, a confrontation that turned violent, and a desperate cover-up to preserve family reputation. Forensic experts detailed every horrific detail: the accelerant, the injuries, the destroyed devices. The courtroom gasped when the SD card video was played. Mia's tearful face confessing her fear of Layla, the trembling in her voice as she said, "If something happens to me, tell them it was her." Layla's attorney tried to argue the video was edited, but the timestamps, voice patterns, and metadata proved otherwise. Fisel's recorded confession was played next, his voice shaking as he admitted to burning the body to protect his wife. The gallery fell silent, the illusion of power shattered. The defense tried to pivot, claiming insanity, coercion, even blackmail. But nothing could undo the evidence. After weeks of testimony, the judge delivered a verdict that echoed through the marble hall: guilty of premeditated murder. Layla's stoic mask finally broke, her scream piercing the air as officers restrained her. Fisel hung his head, whispering prayers no one could hear. Outside, crowds gathered, chanting for justice, holding photos of Mia smiling in her nurse's uniform. The world had just watched Dubai's untouchables crumble under the truth they buried with fire. When the verdict was read, the world exhaled. Layla al-Rahman received life imprisonment without parole, and Fisel was sentenced to 30 years for aiding and covering up the murder. The courtroom's marble floors echoed with the sound of finality, a sound that marked the end of a dynasty built on lies. Detective Omar Khalid stood at the back, emotionless but proud. For months, he had fought to bring justice for a woman no one cared about until her death made headlines. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered under the scorching Dubai sun, chanting Mia Santos's name, holding candles and flowers for the Filipina nurse who had become a symbol of courage and tragedy. Her face was now on posters across the city, the woman who exposed the elite, the voice that couldn't be silenced. Meanwhile, inside her small hometown in the Philippines, her family watched the broadcast through a shaky internet connection, tears streaming as they finally heard the words, "guilty." They didn't have wealth or lawyers, but they had truth, and that truth had won. Months later, Fisel was found dead in his prison cell, an apparent suicide, though rumors swirled that someone powerful had ensured his silence. Layla, on the other hand, lived on, isolated, despised, and haunted by the life she destroyed. Detective Omar moved on to new cases, but the image of Mia's final video never left his mind. In a city where money often buried morality, this case became a rare story where justice clawed its way out from beneath gold and sand. The affair that began with stolen glances and whispered promises had ended in ashes, confessions, and handcuffs. And though Mia Santos was gone, her story burned brighter than the fire that took her, a reminder that truth, once lit, can never be extinguished.